Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for the museum's Tuesday Treasure program. This evening we are showing a recording rather than a live discussion, as all of our staff is away enjoying their holidays with their loved ones. As always, thank you again so much for joining me. We are going to take a look at some of the lesser seen objects in the museum's collection. Tonight we are focusing on winter related items. My name, as always, is Nicole Carpenter. I am the Director of Programs and Education here at the Westport Museum for History and Culture. We are pleased to offer this program free of charge, as all of our recorded free programs are, such as our Tuesday Treasures and our Chats on the Past. We do have a suggested donation of $5 for all of our free programs that allow us to continue this programming. We do understand that this is still a challenging time for many, and we do hope that you can donate, but if you can't, we ask that you support the museum however you can. One of those ways is by liking and following us on social media. You can be notified of our future programs, such as tonight's program, by following us on Facebook and Twitter at Westport History and on Instagram at Westport History Museum. All of our free programs are also recorded, and those recordings can be found on both Facebook and on our YouTube channel that you can find just by searching the name of the museum. If you have any questions on our program tonight, or comments, anecdotes, stories that you would like to share, while I won't be able to answer them live here, I will go through any of those questions that you have after you've entered them and answer them in the comments box. So please do feel free to interact with this video however you would like. This evening we are going to take a look at some of these winter objects. As I mentioned before, I, as always, have my gloves on to handle our collection items. The first item we will take a look at tonight is the item you see here in the front. This is a pair of skates. These are vintage skates. They date back to the 1820s. And these were owned and used by a man named Brigham Wallace. He lived during the 19th century, as I mentioned, and there is a note from his family member, Joanne Davidson, who donated these items, that he used them during the roughly the 1830s all the way up to 1892, and they would be used for skating. Of course, there is a screw here to screw into your skate, and then all of these leather strappings would have been strapped over the shoe with the metal on the bottom. Now, these skates were a part of a very strict etiquette for skating. Of course, you would have the correct equipment, but there were very specific rules that you would follow to be a polite skater. And this was true throughout the 1800s and into the Victorian period and the 1900s. The first was to learn to put on and take off your own skates without any assistance. This was considered polite etiquette. It was always polite to wait for your skating partner to put on their skates and be ready to go before you actually went out onto the ice. And also, you were advised not to carry any sticks, muffs, or anything else that would impede your skating. You were also never to throw stones or any other items onto the surface of the rink, which might endanger someone else. You were also supposed to be ready at all times to what they said as render assistance to anyone, either a lady or gentleman, who may require it. There is actually an incident in the Newtown Bee of a Westporter who broke through the ice in 1888, February 3rd. James Maples broke through the ice while skating on the Saugatuck River and nearly drowned. This appears in the newspaper, and it is noted that he was saved. These skating etiquette rules were followed very closely, not only to be polite, but also to render assistance or help anyone that might be in danger while skating. As I mentioned, these items, or these skates, were donated by Joanne Davidson, and they were donated to the museum in 2009. The next item that we're going to take a look at is actually this large item here. This is a child's sleigh, and this was donated to the museum in 2012. Now this is a beautiful example. It's a red child's sleigh. This is from around 1910, 1900. This possibly could have been a gift. It's actually not noted on its accession or provenance, but it is likely something that was a bit more of an expensive item. It is made of metal and wood. It is painted as well. On the front inside lid, it has a duck painted there as well. And its handle does move so that it may be pulled. This is a sleigh that is meant to be pulled by a rope or something tied around the handle rather than a true kind of sledding sleigh. And of course it was made for a very small rider to be pulled along through the snow. The third item that I'd like to show you this evening is a black fur muff. This dates from the 1860s and it belonged to Cora Skinner, who was the donor's great-grandmother. This is a very old item. So this is, as I mentioned, a muff. Now back to our skating etiquette rules, this would have been discouraged from being brought onto the ice in case you needed to use your hands. But in any other case, a lady might carry this around as a hand warmer, but also she might have used it as a makeshift purse. Some muffs were actually created to have an inner pocket besides the pocket for warming the hands to hold certain small items. This is a fur muff. It does, of course, have the animal's face here on the front. And prior to the 17th century, muffs, earlier muffs than this, would have been used by both men and women. By the time that you reach the 18th century, it's mostly women who are using these pieces. And very often a muff would match the collar or the trim of a coat or a hat. The last item that I would like to show you this evening is a hat. Now this is from the 1960s. This is a pillbox hat, as you can see here. I will rotate it around. This is made of mink fur. It is a true fur hat. And this was created by the company Brandenburg Furs. There is a tag on the inside. Brandenburg Furs was a company out of Middletown, Ohio, and it was formed in the 1960s and 1950s, And it was operated by Bryce and Marvin Brandenburg. By 1983, their child, Eddie K. Garrett, was manager of the business and advertised Middletown's complete furriers and women's apparel. And this was considered a higher-end brand for these furs. The business is no longer in operation. The building has actually been demolished, but this item is a remnant of their business. And this particular hat was donated by Barbara Cromack, and it had a matching collar piece as well that is also held in our collection that we may take a look at some other time. So those are all of the winter items that we have selected for this evening. If you have any questions, again, I will not be answering them today as we are not live. But if you have anything you would like to share or anything you would like to ask, please do enter it in the comments box below. And I or one of my staff members will get back to you and try to answer your questions as well as we can. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do follow us on all of our social media to be notified of these programs in the future. We will continue our Tuesday Treasure series into 2021. So join us again in January when you have a chance. Thank you so much and have a great evening.